it was a great fight. Petr Yan, Sean O'Malley. I thought it was a great fight, great contrasting personalities. Obviously, if I'm the UFC, I definitely want O'Malley more than Yan. No offense to Yan, but O'Malley sells tickets. He's a mini McGregor, for lack of a better term. I don't mean that as an offense. That's what I was tweeting. Yeah, don't ever think that. We'd be naive to say, we have no proof of nothing, but we'd be naive to say that business doesn't become a factor. I mean, it's like the Godfather movie where Hyman Roth, says to Michael Corleone, he says, hey, it was never, he asked him about some kind of decision about something, and he said, hey, it's business, it's not personal. And it's that here too. I mean, you're right. They got a guy who sells more tickets, a guy who has that personality, a guy who has a certain style, a guy who has orange hair, right? All that stuff. And Conor McGregor's not around right now. They want to fill that gulf a little bit. Hey, they got Paddy the Baddy, another guy. And so they want to have these personalities, to keep growing the business, to keep the excitement, to keep that edge, that part, not just the killers. I mean, they're all killers, but to also have how much influence. No, it's still an entertainment business. Look, I think that we'd be naive to say, to not mention it. Put it to we are not saying that the fight was the judgment or the score or the decision was coerced by somebody, was tainted. By all we're saying is that floats above it, that floats in the air. Of course.
And
no question.
Ahead, finish what you want.
And look, I think they got it wrong, but it was a close fight. It was very competitive for O'Malley with his relative lack of experience in the grand scheme of things to jump up and take out the number one contender, even to be in the fight competitive. Like I said, I don't think he won, but credit to O'Malley. He clearly did enough for some of these judges to think he did. The fight was incredibly entertaining, back and forth. O'Malley said he'd never been rocked like that. And Yan, I think he just sits back at times. He's a little bit too conservative. He should have been a little busier in hindsight, but I'll leave the analysis to you.
No, part of it was the length too. O'Malley,
yeah.
His length helped because Yan.
Let me hold on. I want to get your whole. Let me just finish that. They're saying that the final scores were 29-28 for Yan, 29-28 O'Malley, and two judges had it 29-28 O'Malley, and he gets the decision. All I could think was you saying O'Malley's using his length perfectly. He was almost seeming to hit him from across the ring, and even my 9-year-old said, Dad, he seems to be able to punch him from anywhere, and the other guy seems to have to get really close. So take it away. How'd you like the performance? From both guys.
You, Ken. It's not so much Yan had dead spots. I'll tell you what those dead spots are. He can't come in there flailing because he's dealing with a guy who's controlling range, who's longer, who's got legs, who can stretch out the ring a little bit, make the ring bigger, who can control space, change the space. So those dead spots you described, they're not really dead spots. What they are is He's got to be controlled. He can't be reckless because if he's reckless, he'll get caught before he ever gets to his punching place. His punching place is closer. His destination is to get in close where he can do some damage. And on the way in, he's going through a bad neighborhood. You can get mugged going through bad neighborhoods. He knows that. He knows that. So what he's doing is he's being controlled and responsible, and not flailing away and not leaving himself wide open by getting anxious from too far. And that's where you get those dead spots. But what they really are responsible spots. What they really are controlled spots. What they really are is spots where he's got to navigate to a certain place before he opens up. So you're not going to see the hands moving because they shouldn't move from too far away. You're not going to see that kind of action right there. So it looks like he's being dead spots, but it's thinking, it's strategy, it's understanding of what he's dealing with. Listen, with the striking, O'Malley's terrific. It reminded me of Roy Jones Jr. a little bit with the kind of skill level that he has, where he's getting combinations off, and he's got the long arms, and he's controlling. As I always say, this fight. The first battle in these fights is the battle for geography. Who's going to get the real estate they need to use their skills to the utmost, to have an advantage? And so O'Malley's real estate, his geography has to be on the outside. Yan has to be in close. And they both were battling for those, for those dimensions, for that real estate. And when O'Malley had the outside, he had the edge. When Yan got his hands on him and got in close, he's a very strong guy, very physical guy, much more physical than the wiry, O'Malley. When he got in close, not that O'Malley's not strong, but when he got in close, he got the edge. Now, what O'Malley also reminded me a little bit was a page out of the book of the tremendous fighter champion Adesanya. And I'll tell you why. Where Adesanya's strength is striking too, not so much on the floor, on the mat, but he's developed where he can survive on the mat, where he has escapability, where he escapes takedowns, where he's like a quarterback who gets out of the pocket and who's not easy to sack, and I saw some of that which really served him. I saw some of that with O'Malley, where he was able to survive when he got taken down, was able to escape a couple takedowns, not all of them, but I saw, like I said, some of that similar to what Adesanya has. And to his credit, he knows he has to develop in those areas, because you're fighting dimensional guys here. You're not going to always have your way. You're going to have to be able to handle the other guy's territory too. You're going to be visiting his house too, if you're going to be the best. So it was really back and forth in those ways that I just described. The only separation really was when each guy got the exact real estate that they needed, that they wanted. But O'Malley did something that I think everyone was waiting to see if he was going to do. And that was to show he was a fighter. I know that sounds absurd. Those guys are all fighters. But at that level, to sort of similar to what Sugar Ray Leonard showed in his first fight with Duran, where he showed he was more than a talented guy, a pretty boy. He showed that he was a fighter. He was a warrior. He'd get down and dirty. He had that character. And people loved him for it. People wanted to see that. They knew he was talented already. I think people wanted to see that also with O'Malley. And O'Malley might have wanted to see it. And we saw it. We saw that. He does have that. He got tested. He got thrown into the hot water. He got thrown into the deep end in that way, in that kind of way, to be tested. Not what he had on the outside, but what he had on the inside. We already knew what he had on there. He's got a lot of talent. But what did he have on the inside? We found out. He's got it. He's got it. And I think that was a big part of it, that he came up aces in that area. We already knew Yan had it. Yan has to show it every day. But this guy, because of his great talent, sometimes doesn't really have to show it. Sometimes doesn't have to go to that place. But he had to go to that place this time with Yan. And he went to that place and he got out. And he got out because he had that character. Because he had that it factor. And I give the edge to Yan, but I can't argue. I can't go crazy because it was a close fight, a competitive fight, a tremendous fight. And at the end of the day, taking nothing away from Yan. Yan showed it too. But O'Malley passed the test. He passed the test. I'm not saying you get extra credit for that, but he passed the test that we all wanted to see if he would pass. That, yeah, he knows how to spell that word warrior. He knows how to spell it, and he knows how to walk it.